Hello world of YouTube, and welcome to another small... It's weird having a judgmental camera. Hello world of YouTube, and welcome to another list video. As was supposed to happen last month, I'm doing a big list month list week at the end of this month, so I figured I'd do a small music-related list to kind of incorporate some music into the discussion, of course. And today I'm going to be revisiting a topic that I previously did a video on, even though I didn't necessarily shoot it in this space, and that is a dissection of 6 records that I've changed my opinion on as time has gone on. Now, I'm not going to be doing albums from this year because it's only April, and while I've listened to a decent chunk of releases so far, I'm not necessarily changing my mind extremely on any of the albums I've listened to so far. So instead, I'm going to be talking about records that I've reviewed or discussed on any facet of the internet since the listening logs have started. So anytime from 2015 through now, I'll be talking about records that I've changed my opinion on. And that's about it. So let's get reevaluating.
Head on the swivel, no bleeding me. Head on the swivel, no bleeding.
We're gonna start off on one of the higher notes because there are some records that I think more negatively on as time has gone on. But Vince Staples FM continues to be one of the more fun records of his to revisit. While my biggest complaint when I initially reviewed it was its length, that, while still an issue to me, seems to be a diminishing issue because I love the atmosphere of this record, I love the execution of its concept, and I love how tight this record feels as a whole. I think the features are really well utilized, and I think the production is top-notch, and this still stands, to me, as Vince's best project and his most consistent one to date. I think I originally gave it a 7. I'm happy sitting with it at an 8 now. I think it's great. I think it's a lot of fun. And I think Vince seemingly has some of the most fun he's had in his career on this project thus far. It's just a great, tiny little micro album to sink your teeth into and have like a nice little just side jam. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm so fed in love. Shit, what the fuck you complaining for?
This is one of the albums that I put on the earlier renditions of the listening log that I never talked about on the channel, but I was very lukewarm to Rihanna's most recent project as of right now, Anti. I thought it was a little disjointed, and I thought that Rihanna was kind of throwing a lot of darts at the board and just seeing what stuck. And while I still feel like that's somewhat of a problem, I think that I've grown to appreciate the songs themselves more, and even the songs that I thought were incredibly jarring, I keep revisiting in a way that may seem disconnected because they're sort of cherry-picked out of the album themselves, but I think that the tracks that stand tall, stand really, really tall, and go toe-to-toe with some of Rihanna's best work. While I still think it's could use with a little bit of adjusting to its pacing, if I looked more into the track listing, I could probably do a redacted on it someday. I think that this record is actually relatively solid. I think I was pretty harsh on it. I think I gave it a 5 when it initially dropped, and I could see it bumping up to like a high 6, maybe a low 7 on a good day. I don't know. I've revisited this record a handful of times since I initially reviewed it, and I still think it's a little all over the map. But I mean, I like records like that sometimes, and I think that this is a decent one of those. On the opposite side of the coin, Big Tings by Skindred continues to be my least favorite project of their catalog. I've been revisiting Skindred loosely because of, well, you know, reasons, but Big Tings continues to be a record that I just am not having fun with. You know, while I think it's respectable that they're sort of shifting away from their roots in a way that I'm sure is beneficial to them, personally, their roots are one of the more interesting things to me about Skindred. Big Tings to me feels like a featureless character that, while, you know, pretty standard in composition and competent in structure, it's just not as fun for me to listen to as, say, Kill the Power or Roots Rock Riot. You know, it's a record that I won't be looking forward to throwing around and discussing when I'm talking about the reformatted discography review, is what I'm saying. Another record that I've been a little more underwhelmed with since I started doing the listening logs was the crossover of Israeli metal powerhouses that was Non. That was a collaboration record featuring A Massacre and Orphanland. Orphan Land being one of my favorite bands to come from Israel. I like a lot of their music. I wouldn't be surprised if I did a discography review on them at some point. And I've heard a couple of Massacre's projects, and I love their handling of scope and scale. And this project just continues to be one of the more uninteresting collaborations I've heard in recent metal. I think that this is just a lot of elongated messes drawn out to album length when they could have really utilized their resources a lot better, especially given how quality Orphan Land's last project was, which I did cover on the listening log updates when I was sort of getting back into the swing of things. But None continues to be sort of a glimmering misstep in what could have been a fantastic bringing together of huge scope and intensity that I feel like would have been very beneficial for the scene.
Now you're looking at me like.
Now, I put one of these songs on my Songs of the Decade list, and this album ended up on my Songs of the Albums of the Decade list, which if you haven't seen my initial rating of it, it was an 8 out of 10. I really loved I Remembered Then I Forgot, but the more I revisit it, the more I just fall in love with its sound. You know, it is one of my favorite records to spin around the fall time now, because I love the warm atmosphere. I love John LaJoie's voice paired with these guitars, and I think that he just made something fucking special. I love his handling of these odd subject matters, like struggling relationships but through a different perspective. Things like just having a humble lifestyle even amidst, you know, struggling and being sort of a blue-collar guy. Having a fear boner.
Fear boner, do not be afraid.
This album is masterfully crafted. Its production is top-notch. And while he's back on his comedy music tip, I really hope he makes another full-length under this moniker, because I think it's one of the more gratifying folk releases I've heard in the last decade. It is so earnest and well-crafted from a songwriting perspective, and I love it a lot. And to cap off, we're going to do another positive record, a record that I've grown in appreciation for, and that is Big K.R.I.T's last project he's dropped so far, K.R.I.T. Is Here. An album that I was very lukewarm to, given my love of K.R.I.T. Some would say it was a little harsh on the project, and while I still think there's some general pacing issues with the album itself, I've grown to really appreciate the hook-centric writing that K.R.I.T. accomplishes on here, his infusions almost like a chameleon of other people's styles in a way that still feels very earnest to his own style, and I think he handles being on other people's production pretty gracefully. It's also probably because I saw it in a live setting, and I've been working on another project involving this record. Not to spoil too much, but I am working on something with this album to make it a better experience. I've grown to like the songs on this record a lot more the more that I've sat with this project. And I do feel like it just has some inherent pacing flaws. And some songs that just underwhelm, that made it a project that I thought I was not too into. But personally, as the time has gone on, I'd probably bump this album to like a high 6, a mid to high 6. It's very solid. It just has some issues that I had issues with, and I could see why others might have issues with as well. And those are the albums that I wanted to talk about today, that my opinions have changed on. What do you think of these records? What do you think of this concept, revisiting it in the future? Let me know in those comments down below. But if you did like this video, be sure to give it a like. If you would like to see more of my music, gaming, and general nerdery content, be sure to subscribe. Special thanks to my patrons if you would like to join their ranks, get early access to content, get exclusive content, and help drive the community. It's linked in the description. I'm going to get out of here. Thank you again so very much for watching. I have been Viral Rack. You guys have good days, lives, situations, and I'll see you another day.